I believe we are live. Yes,
Oh,
we are
after
live.
all
I'm
this.
sorry, that was an ordeal. Yeah. So for those not in the know, Zoom and YouTube make it really complicated to go live for some reason.
Yeah,
So Zander Cannon is back on the Comics
back
Cube.
on the Comics Cube.
Welcome
Yeah.
back, Xander, to
Thanks
our
for having me.
yearly chat.
Yeah, I love it. I had to push it. I had to push it this year at deadlines. Uh, but yeah. Uh, well, yeah. So I did. I just finished the seventh issue, and I think I did it in 3.5 weeks, which I don't. I shouldn't brag about. Like I'm not bragging about it. I'm just like it was stressing me out.
No, it's a point of pride.
Yeah, right. Sure, maybe.
So for those who are joining us for the first time with Xander, the reason we're doing this every year is because one year I asked him for an interview and he nicely granted it, and then the next year I asked him for another one, and we didn't realize it was on the same date, and it just kind of became a tradition.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no larger reason than that. And it's fun.
Xander, the last time we spoke, when you were on the show, this is the first time you're doing it live.
Yeah.
Um, as your interview. The last time we spoke, you were just about to launch Sleep from Image Comics.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know what Sleep is, please let them know what Sleep is.
Okay. So yeah, this is my well, I was gonna say it's my first image series, but it's not. My first one was Replacement God in the 90s for 5 issues. And then but this is my first one in the 2020s for sure. And
Yeah.
so
In the
it's
21st century.
in the 21st century. That's right. Uh, it's about a guy when he falls asleep, he turns into a murderous monster and kills people by the score and causes destruction. So it's a Jekyll and Hyde thing, but I only show the Jekyll parts. So every issue is his waking hours from when he wakes up till he falls asleep, and then all the murder and stuff happens in between issues. And it's a mystery. It's black and white, and there's gray, or sorry, there's it's black and white, and there's red images, like objects and stuff like that, that sort of hint at the lore. Um, we've been 6 issues are out, and so people have started really refining their guesses about what's going on. Which I think I got an email the other day that was pretty close, and I was like, "Uh-oh, I better wrap this up."
If it was pretty close, are you going to publish that?
Well, it was too. It was. I'd already locked in the seventh issue letters page, and so I couldn't put it in there, which I would have, but I would have redacted some of the best stuff. But then, but it's like the only one I put it in now is the last issue where, well, everything is laid bare anyway. So, yeah, if I can fit it in, they'll do a victory lap, and say, "Yep, I was right."
Xander, I'm going to try to talk about sleep in a way that, I don't really spoil anything for people. So you do say it's a Jekyll and Hyde story, but you only ever show the Jekyll parts.
Right.
That drives me insane.
Oh, it drives not just you, everybody. Yeah, people are so annoyed. Well, people are annoyed, but they're like, I don't know why. Like, if you had told me this about the comic, I would never have bought it. But it keeps me coming back. There's enough there to make me go, oh, mysteries. There was a
It,
podcast the other day that was like, yeah, two people who had read it were kind of like, this is this seems like it would really annoy me. And it does annoy me, but I keep coming back.
but you put that in the marketing material though. It's the first thing you ever told me about it.
Yeah, and I know, and uh, I well, believe me, I was told by many people that it was not a good idea. And
No,
I
it's a
just
great
think,
idea. What?
yeah, well, or like that they would be like, oh, well, that's gonna be annoying, or that's gonna be that, and people, and I'm just like, I don't know, like you have to do something different. You can't just do the same comics over and over and over again. Like yeah, like oh, a monster that when it turns, a guy who turns into a monster and you see the monster all the time. Yeah, that's the Hulk. It's a great comic. We don't need to do it again. Like, and I can't sort of go toe to toe with every Hulk artist that's out there. You know, like,
It
well, I mean, that's my thought because I don't think of well, I'll dispense with any false modesty. I'm a perfectly good artist, but but I think that the strength of any of my comics are in the conception and the characters and like in the style of storytelling. Actually, that's an interesting thing I wanted to get to later, but like the style of storytelling and sort of the journey that I take you on, and not like James Herron, Daniel Warren Johnson, like just blowing your brains out with these, with this unbelievable art that you've never seen before.
No, yeah, Daniel Warren Johnson and his it's a way that he makes comics move that it
Yeah,
is difficult to replicate.
yeah,
But you are
it's
right about
astonishing.
your concepts.
Well, right. I mean, and of course, like I have this and six other things that have just been stewing in my head for a decade or two or however long. I mean, I think I came up with this idea 25 years ago, and it's at the core the same. They've added a bunch of extra stuff, and I changed the way that I was going to sort of present it. But yeah, I mean, but I sort of feel like, yeah, if it, one, personally, if you're not going to do a comic that's pretty new, has a pretty new take on an idea, I don't know what we're even doing here. You know? But also, I think that in the market today, it's like if you're going to do a creator-owned book and you're not, whatever, Tradmore, or like somebody who's going to blow everyone away with this amazing thing that you've drawn, I think that you really have to have a ultra tight concept and an ultra tight sort of like your premise has to be really, really sort of remarkable and different at least anyway.
Sleep follows Jonathan Reason. It's a Jekyll and Hyde story, but you only see the Jekyll parts. He may or may not be turning into a monster while you're as Hyde.
Yeah.
However, the sleep of reason does. What is the rest of that sentence? The sleep of reason
The sleep of reason produces monsters or something like this.
produces.
Spanish, it's a Spanish quote, but like, uh, but yeah, and I, the Francisco, there's a lot of Francisco Goya. That's where that quote comes
Yeah,
from, is the title of that thing. So I mean, there's the print is in the background somewhere, and I use Goya and Francisco kind of pop up every so often. But I kind of people are kind of like, oh, too cute. And I'm like, well, it's not really. I mean, I didn't really want it to be about that because that's not what that post is about. It's more about nightmares and it's like sleep paralysis, maybe. I don't know. And so I just was kind of putting it in there to sort of give a sense of menace to the to the proceedings in the first issue when there's not really a lot of menacing things going on yet.
I'm going to go ahead and say there's nothing wrong with being too cute. There is an issue. There is an issue of a very critically acclaimed comic called Watchmen, where in I believe it is issue 5, entitled "Fearful Symmetry," where a cop says, "Here be tigers" with a Y.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
nerd.
so there's nothing
A,
wrong
that
with being
cop's a
too cute.
nerd, and B, that writer, whoever he is a nerd.
Whatever happened to that guy?
I hear he did one superhero cop comic that was really great, and yeah, disappeared after that, I believe.
Oh, absolutely. That's the one. That's the
Yeah,
one to
that's
go
right.
for.
That's right.
Okay, so sleep again. You tell it in black and white and red,
Hmm.
and I don't think I'm spoiling anything when I say that there is a different concentration of red in each issue.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to figure out what goes into the decision of coloring things red,
oh,
because
mhm.
it's not like Sin City, you know?
Right, right.
Sin City's pretty obvious. Like red things are red. So
Right, red things are red, and important. I mean, obviously, important things are red. And it's in a way that's kind of the same thing. I didn't want to do the blood is red type of thing because I think it's been done. I mean, but yeah, I mean, so I mean, there's a lore reason, and I think that that's always what people are guessing. But there's also like a production reason because the reason that I even came up with doing things in red is that I wanted this character to have, well, I wanted this character Jonathan to be distinct. And he's kind of like just kind of a regular boring ass white guy like me. And so I was like, well, let's give him distinctive glasses. And at first I was going to give him white glasses when this comic was kind of still going to be in color. But then I was like, well, I won't. contrast against his boring ass white face. And so I gave him red glasses, and then I was kind of like, oh, okay. So if I have this one pop of red, well, that's not enough. I'm gonna have to give a reason. So I figured out the reason, and then that reason sort of expanded outward to be other things. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, and I kind of wanted to have like a certain like you say, concentration on each page,
Mhm.
like so that we're not, I mean, it, so that we're not wasting the fact that there's another color in it, which we're not anyway. I mean, it's not a like it isn't the 90s where like, oh, it has to be like a red plate. This is a full color comic that just so
Yes.
happens to not be using like two-thirds of the plates, you know. Um, but yeah, I mean, so anyway, it just yeah, I liked the idea of yeah, again, it's like working backwards from how much red I wanted to put on a page to, oh, let's give it a meaning that works with the storytelling and stuff like that.
Oh, it's interesting to me because like it's funny how comics work, right? Comics works, right? Let's say if you did this as a color comic and you gave the main guy red glasses, we would
Hmm.
all be like, why the hell is he wearing red glasses? Who wears
Right, it's
red
a style
red
like yeah,
glasses?
you'd think, oh, this guy's a very like fashion plate. What's his deal?
Yeah, you would it becomes a character trait.
Yeah.
But here, I don't actually know if he is wearing red glasses so much as he's wearing glasses and they seem to be important.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. Nobody in, well, not nobody, but almost nobody in the book can see the red. You know what I mean? Um, and so yeah, like you say, like they're probably black glasses or whatever, but they're just shown as red because of this reason that
No
that is
pun,
yet
no
to be
pun
revealed.
intended.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, yes. I'm sorry. That pun was not intended. Um,
Xander, you have brought back the joy of letters pages because at the end of each letters page, you have an FAQ. But really, what you also have is a corner for people to send in their speculations, and you encourage it to keep coming in. So I'm just going to ask you right now: do the red things mean anything?
Oh, they mean something for
Okay,
sure. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're not
No,
just there to make it pop.
at first of all, well, so a friend of mine, I think it had gotten into somebody's head. They were like these two friends were like, "Oh yes, so and so said that it didn't mean anything. Like the red is just sort of arbitrary." And I'm like, "Have you met me? Like, I will overthink anything, but certainly I'm going to overthink the lore of my own comic book. Like so there's tons and tons of reasons. Well, there is a core reason, and that's all going to be in the eighth issue. But yeah, like, come on, like I'm ever just gonna put anything in there for no reason. Like that would drive me crazy.
Um, in one of the issues, you do something that I've only ever seen a couple of other creators do. I call it the trick ending.
Oh yeah.
Uh, what was the impetus for doing that? Because
Well, so okay, this is making me think of a question that you asked me in our last year's podcast, where you were asking me about formalism, like the formalist, that sort of like quadrant that Scott McCloud did, formalist and this and the, iconoclast and so forth. And I was like, I
funny you
don't think
should
I'm
mention
really.
Scott McCloud.
And I was like, I don't think I'm really a formalist. And of course, I have to admit, I 100% am. Like, not in the same way that Scott McCloud is or like Chris Ware is or whatever. Those, that it's like that's the core of playing with it. But I do set up rules and I do not break them if I can possibly avoid it. And so, um, uh, sorry, what your question was about? What was it about again?
Like, what was the impetus of doing the trick ending in one of the issues?
Oh,
I'm not saying which
yeah,
one.
because had set up this rule that like every issue was one day or one waking period. And so because in the seventh issue, or sorry, in the sixth issue, slight spoilers, there's basically two waking periods. I wanted to divide them just enough that you would kind of go, "Oh wow, an ending." And then you kind of go, "Oh wow," and then there's another tiny little chapter at the end. Just instead of just clicking right along, I wanted to give people just a moment to wonder if that was it. And I do think it works. I mean, you have to turn to the next letters, like you have to be interested enough in the comic to turn to the next letters page to see it then on the facing page and go, "Oh, wow, there's more."
In all three issues that I've seen that pulled off, one was an issue of Zot by Scott McCloud.
Right?
One
Yeah.
was an issue of Daredevil by Chris Samney and Mark Waid. And now this. You've all split it with a letters page. When Scott McCloud reprinted Zot, he had text pieces after every chapter, and that's how
Oh,
he was
yeah.
able to replicate that.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Marvel collection, which is one of the two worst collected edition offices in the world. The other
Meow.
one is DC Comics.
Yeah, right, right. Huh. How did it work out that way, I wonder?
So, just didn't care and
Yeah,
left it alone.
yeah.
How are you going to do it in the?
Uh, I think I mean, I'm going to do a hardcover first, and so there's a little bit of like leeway in terms of page count. And I think I'll probably have like at least a two-page spread that's kind of like the chapter breaks. And I mean, and I do like label the chapters, or number all the chapters. And so I'm sure that it'll just be as if there's a separate chapter. And I mean, it probably won't have this quite the same impact, but I don't know. You can only do so much.
Okay. How tricky is it to write this particular mystery? Because there are certain things that happen where, for example, in the first issue, a guy comes back into town. His name is Hip, and
Yeah.
that's when everything starts happening.
Yeah.
And that seems awfully so coincidental that it can't possibly be that.
Right. I
Except
mean,
I
maybe.
know that you're thinking that I'm gonna think that,
Oh yeah. This is like
right?
4D chess.
So,
It's
like,
me.
how
It's
tricky?
me playing against every smarty pants reader. Uh, no, well, one of the things. So comparing this to Kaiju Max, the most recent comic, is that like Kaiju Max had a very loose lore. It was just like it's a satire, and so if something is kind of going against what I had already established, but it was funnier, I would just kind of use the new one and kind of just paper over the idea that it's like, well, that happened, but it's not really that big of a deal, and and assume that everybody just kind of wants to see a fun story. Whereas with this, it's like, well, I mean, it's not, it doesn't have jokes coming every 2 seconds, and so it's more like I felt like, okay, well, this here is going to be really absolutely centered around this unbreakable lore at the center of it, and so then I did the plotting was very sort of like, I mean, it's all kind of logistics because it's like it's following this one character, never skips around to anybody else. And so it's just following this one character. And so, I just have two concerns. Where is he and what can he get to? And what is he doing? And then the concepts that I need to introduce and the clues that I need to sort of seed in. And so it's kind of fun to have this thing where you're like, I mean, obviously you want to keep it fun and you want to keep there's like, okay, there's push and pull of like all these priorities that everybody has. But a lot of it is just sort of like, I need to get this concept in. So I'm gonna have somebody say it as a joke or like as an aside, or I need to put in this little clue about what something that had happened years before, or and so that's kind of fun to be able to do that, because we're all just centered on this poor dope who's stumbling through this terrible week of his life. And yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It was a fun, different style thing. Because the only thing I had planned, and it used to be up on that whiteboard back there, was just like his status at going to sleep and waking up each morning. Like so I knew the beginning and end of every issue
Mm,
from the very beginning. But then it was kind of like, well, how's he going to get from this place to this place, and how's he going to what are sort of I wanted to have him. I mean, obviously, this is kind of like a werewolf story, like every werewolf story. How do I keep from killing people? And so I was just kind of I was trying to have him be a pretty practical, pretty reasonable, pretty rational protagonist in that situation, and then build around that. And again, and it's like it really is just sort of like the escalation of all of these problems and realizing, oh, that didn't work. Oh, that didn't work. Oh God, that didn't work. And so it's a,
someone in the letters page did point out that Jonathan Reason shares the same initials as Jack Russell,
yeah, it's
the
just
werewolf by night.
yeah, okay, sure. Yeah.
I'm sure you did that on purpose.
I didn't do anything on purpose. Someone was like also like, hey, his friend Tabitha Stevens has the same name as like somebody from I Dream of Jeannie. And I'm like, that also was not intentional.
We have
I
some
mean, you know,
comments in the chat.
yeah, I was just trying to give everybody, I was trying to give everybody other than Hippocrates Nikolai a boring name that you kind of forget. So anyway.
Why Hippocrates specialize?
Well, well, I liked the idea of, well, Hippocrates, of course, the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm,
Yeah.
is sort of like a central theme. And also, I mean, I think I called him Hip because I was not, I was just kind of like throwing in stupid like placeholder names. And I was like, oh, I kind of like that. And oh, what could it stand for? Oh, this, like, I mean, I build my way around to things that seem like they be the original reason all the time, but it's
Mm.
not. I just was like, oh, I give him a name, a stupid name, I thought. And then I was like, oh no, I like it.
Um, Last hometown 9646 says,
Oh,
did they
hi,
talk
Charles.
about this? Oh, oh, you know this guy.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They talk about this comic Sleep on Danny's Whatnot stream every month.
Yeah. Hi, Dan. That's also a friend of mine.
My friend JV says that agrees with you that you do have to have an innovative concept when you're coming up with a new comic. And Mike Aidson says that split personalities and alter egos seem so crucial to a lot of comic series. I hadn't heard of this book, but it sounds great.
Hey, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, let's get people to hear about this book for the first time.
We're only 2 issues away from the ending. It's not. There's no volume two, is there? Is there a
No,
volume two?
no, it's gonna all be in one. Yeah, everything's gonna be resolved in one thing. And yeah, and then I have to immediately start on a YA book about like a frog and a mouse. Like after drawing like the last page of like intestines on the ground, I'll be like, time for fun stories for kids.
I will ask you about that later because I am curious. Is the fact that you're doing what I think is a monster comic without ever showing the monster because you spent the last decade and a half drawing monsters?
Drawing nothing but monsters. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like and I love low budget horror movies, and and it's like this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, there's no reason to do it in comics at all. I mean, in a way, it's like it's so rare to make a comic book that you're like, oh, this you could make this horror movie out of this comic book for nothing, like the ability to film in a small town, and a couple sets, you'd be golden,
That's true.
which is funny, like, and I'm weird like that. Like I just want to be like when I did this Star Trek comic years ago, Picard gets zapparooed into some like empty white space, which obviously would be on the show would be a budget saving move, but in the comics, why am I even doing that?
Xander,
It's to be funny, I guess.
you did point out earlier that every scene in Sleep has followed Jonathan Reason, and
Mm.
I've flipped through these issues multiple times trying to figure out what's going on, and I don't think I caught that myself.
Oh,
That this is almost a first person comic.
yeah, almost. Yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, I think that's fun. And it forced me to do certain things like especially early on, when it was, he would have a whole day where I would kind of have to be like, all right, well, he's going to be closing the store, closing the coffee shop. And so I was like, well, that could be really tedious to follow him through all that. So I did those sort of like quick cuts, almost Edgar Wright style quick cuts of sound effects that sort of like punctuated all these things that he had to do to close the store. And I thought that that was kind of fun to be like, we're not leaving him, but we're accelerating this little section so that we don't get bored, and we're just sticking with the important stuff.
I ask you this question every time you come on, but I always ask it for anyone who hasn't heard it before. Um, I think it's really interesting because if you only ever looked at your artwork, at a random piece of your artwork, people would think you only drew cute stuff.
Oh yeah,
But
and it really is it's a problem that well, with Kaiju Max it was a real problem because people were like, oh, this is
oh,
great, will be great for my 5-year-old, and it's like it won't really. but but yeah, and it's like, and again, it's like now I'm doing my first like kids comic, yeah, YA probably, but like kids comic, and it's like, yeah, I mean, this is probably fit me like a glove. But I do like to do stuff that is, grotesque or sad at least, you know, and um yeah, I don't know. It's
You
just
think you get away with more stuff because of the way your art style looks?
On Kaiju Max I definitely did. Like there was all
Hmm.
sorts of stuff that was so upsetting that it's if you drew it, you know, if I mean if you draw it sort of like a like Jamal Igle, you know, like a
Yeah.
sort of a conventional sort of superhero style that it feels very vivid and very sort of real and I think it would be upsetting. You know, I mean, it would be more upsetting. It is upsetting, but it would be more upsetting, and maybe not, and maybe more than people would tolerate. I think that people tolerated it pretty well because they were like, you could kind of grapple with it from sort of a remove where you're like, well, yeah, you know, like this guy did explode and there's blood and guts everywhere, but it's a little bit cute and a little bit funny, and so I kind of don't, I'm not, you know, throwing up or whatever.
If anyone in the chat has any questions for Xander about making comics, about sleep, about working with image, etc., just put them in the chat. Xander, this comic is set in 1996.
Yeah.
I don't think you could tell this story set anytime after camera phones.
Exactly. And I had kind of when I was thinking, well, when I was originally thinking about it, it probably wasn't 1996, but it was probably 1999 or 2000. And like, even then, I was kind of like, well, I'd kind of have to sort of like figure out a way around, you know, like security cameras and stuff like that, because those were kind of coming into fashion, certainly in like secure spaces like police stations or something. But yeah, but by the time I eventually got to it, I was like, oh wow, we live in a total like panopticon. We there's no way that there could be this much missing from the story
It's so
plausibly.
different.
Yeah, if you set it in the modern day. And it's like I don't want to think like, oh, I mean obviously there's great horror going on still that either gets around it or includes it or but this story certainly I thought of it in the age of no camera phones, and I had to sort of like make it a period piece in order for it to work.
Yeah, so much of it is about withholding information, and you can't do that if everyone has a phone. You kind of have to contrive a way for everyone's phones to stop working.
Right, right, and that's yeah. Then that's a whole different concept. You know, I mean, I suppose you could always do it, and but I just think unless you're adding to the horror by like, oh gosh, they got a split second clip of something on their phone, and it's, you know, making everything fuzzy. And if that is the effect you're going for, great. Otherwise, I feel like it's kind of nice to just have that out of the picture.
Xander, this is our yearly interview, and this is the first time you're doing it live. But this is not the first time that you've been on the Comics Cube live. You
That's right.
remember?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
And so the last time it was because you crashed Gene Ha's interview.
Like I do.
And what would you say if I said he's about to repay the favor?
I would say I saw this coming in my brain, but I'm delighted.
How?
How could I have possibly known?
How could you have possibly known?
Hello, Zander.
Oh no.
I'm Alan Moore.
Wow, Gene, you look different.
I'm not Gino. I'm Alan Moore.
Wow, what
Oh
book
my
is that?
God. That's his that's his Alan Moore impression.
I mean, yes, of course. I've never seen that book.
I've
Is that a
written
new?
many
Is
books.
All
What
right, all
is
right,
that?
all right,
Is that
right.
is that unearthing? Hi,
Yeah.
Gene. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Hello, all. Yeah, it's unearthing.
How are you, Gene?
I'm doing okay. So, a bit earlier than I'm usually presentable to the public, but we're just comic geeks, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Now,
Yeah.
Xander says he saw this coming.
I
Oh.
mean, it's what I would have done. I would have snuck Gene in there for sure.
Yeah, but you're a decent human being.
It's what you did do last year.
Yeah, I know. I know. It was great. It's nice to surprise people. So, yeah, yeah.
Gene, we're talking about Sleep, Xander's comic from Image.
Oh, yeah, I
Oh.
wonder if anybody in this chat did a guest cover for issue 8.
Oh yeah, I did that. I don't know if it's been previewed yet.
I think well, no. God, I don't know if it's out yet. I mean, I sent it all in, but I don't know if it's run yet. But anyway,
Yeah.
he did an awesome cover, and then I basically did the same cover, but in my style.
I did that to somebody once too. So yes.
Yeah. Well, I like that because it's like, oh yeah, well, I mean, you won't mistake them,
Oh no, no.
obviously, you know.
It's a filter.
Yeah, yeah, it's a filter.
It's a Gene Haw filter.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, that's great. Gene, do you know what's
Well,
going on in sleep? Because it's driving me nuts.
Uh oh geez. I should have reread it before I came here. It began kind of making sense, but there's so many things that could be happening and stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure at this point. So yeah,
I think I had to tell you a couple things just so that you could put it on the cover or like, but I don't think that I gave you like anything usable. I mean, it was just sort of like, oh yeah, this,
no, I
you're
don't
like,
think you gave me anything
what's
revelation.
this texture that you put around this like layout? I'm like, ah, it's bugs.
Yeah, see, that was one of them. So yeah. So I
And
did
he's like, what
largest
kind of
TV.
bugs? And I'm like, I don't care. And he's like, how about earwigs?
Oh, that's right, I forgot.
So I drew some gross earwigs, and I'm like, yeah, all right, like, and I mean, all of these covers, I mean, I mean, 8 different covers. They're all kind of non-canonical, like,
Yeah.
Matt Bors drew like a full view of a demon, and it's like, well, no, I mean, that's not really I mean, necessarily what the demon looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So I
yeah,
kind of like that.
and I invented a new type of earwig where essentially both ends are identical.
Yeah. That's the worst kind of earwig you could invent.
Yeah,
But it's
because
the worst
earwigs
kind of
don't
bug of
actually
any kind.
yeah,
Ugh.
earwigs don't really use the pincers to pinch you. But then I was like, oh, what if they did? And they had one on each end, and it's exactly the same and it wants to pinch you in your ear.
See, now that's the kind of sickos that we need drawing comics.
See, decent human being, me.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Yeah, you've read my comics. You know what a decent human being I am. Yeah.
Like I was saying right before this, his art only looks cute.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Uh, Mike Aiton has a question which he sent before Gene came in, but you know what? I'm just gonna ask both of you. What do you enjoy the most about working in comics? I actually know this for Xander. It is lettering.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Gene, you go first then.
Oh, I did not know that was your favorite thing in comics because the thing I hate most in comics is lettering. It's the only skill I don't want to learn
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I have no talent at it.
Well, I don't think that's true, but I understand. I mean, I feel like it has taken me like 25 years to be a good letterer. Like I was an adequate letterer for a long time, and then it's like, oh well, do 1,000 pages of lettering, and you're like get pretty good at it. Because I mean, even the first 200 of Kaiju Max, I think are so, and then yeah,
Uh,
and I'm
okay, so like balloon placement is pretty difficult for me, and I'll see how some
Really?
people like. Yeah, it's not. I'm not especially natural at that. Let me see. Oh God, there's just like a million little subtle things and stuff like that about getting personality across using word balloons, where it's like, oh, I see what they did now. I would never have thought of that. And that's the
well,
one
one of
thing
the
in comics
things.
where it
Oh, go
doesn't
ahead.
come naturally.
One of
Yeah.
the things that I noticed when we were working on top 10 is that am very willing to sort of like smush and stretch a person to sort of like fit them into a composition that works, that's a little bit artificial, because there's a word balloon here and a word balloon
Yeah.
there, and you kind of need to put the person in here, and you're like, they need to be, you know, this other element needs to be here as for compositionally. And Gene would go, that person is 8.5 feet tall, and this person is like 5.5 feet tall. So we got to make sure that they are, correct. And and it's like, well, when that's your concern, then yeah, like we're putting a balloon in the right place is going to be tricky because you're like, I really only have X to work with. And I'm like, no, 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 no. The balloon is the main thing. We're just going to mush this guy over here.
Actually, no, see, I could use Xander's layouts because, and I can make it work where it's like, oh, if the 8 foot person is visible and the 4 foot person is visible, like if you look at my window here, and their heads are both visible, then obviously the camera angle must be like this or
Right,
like this.
right, right. And so we ended up having a lot of like wild worm's eye view shots
Yeah,
of
bird's
like
eye views and
smacks
stuff
and
like
toy
that.
box, like
Oh, that's true.
yeah, yeah.
Because the size relationship is completely off.
Because I was drawing them as if they were, as if she was, say, 5'3" and he was 6'3", so they could kind of be in the same frame in a neutral with sort of like a horizon behind them. But yeah, Gene correctly was like, no.
No, but I could make it work, but I just had to math it out essentially.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was I was gonna say
just
the
simply,
distortion doesn't work for Gene's style. You can't distort a Gene Ha drawing that way.
No, you would have to come up with something like, oh, he's like leaning down or something, whatever.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, if I do use distortion, it's meant to mean that physically the character is distorted.
Hmm.
Yes.
So instead of
Right.
Xander drawing, it doesn't mean that. But like the thing that I am the worst at in comics, like inside of like in my book May, the storytelling tends to be each person has one or two word balloons at most,
Mm.
and then another person has a word balloon, and then we go to the next panel, and we don't have the standard superhero comic book, eight people having a conversation, each of them having three word balloons, and just like and this giant uh spaghetti tangle of tails indicating who's talking.
Yeah.
And I can't do that. That is
No,
completely
you
unnatural.
shouldn't do that. No one should do that. That's why May is a fun comic to letter instead of a nightmare. Because,
Yeah,
oh yeah, you're like, person says one thing and a second thing, and then this other person says this thing, and then that's it. Every once in a while, the first person might say something again, but you can always kind of fit it in. But like that tangle that you're talking about is I think it's a nightmare as for a letterer, and I think it's a nightmare for a reader too. It's a drag to be like, oh, who is this one? Is okay, this one I have to track down. Oh, that's the thing saying it, whatever.
yeah. I was doing rough layouts, and I'm going to be doing the final drawings pretty soon for a scene with like just three people talking, but it goes back and forth and back and forth in one panel, and it's like I'm trying to do rough balloon layouts
Yeah.
so I can make sure I have enough room for the balloons when the letterer finally does get to it, and I can't figure out a pleasing way to do it, and some letterers can't do that, and no, yeah,
Yeah.
it's totally beyond me.
Well, and I mean, I really like lettering my own stuff, of course, because I can, if someone's head is kind of taking up too much space, well, I can have the balloon kind of be behind it. And I mean, I feel like my comics, like you say, your comics are very literal. If somebody is distorted, that means they're actually distorted by magic or something. Whereas I feel like there's a theatricality to sort of a cartoony style where you can kind of accept that, like, oh yeah, this word balloon kind of almost sort of exists as a physical object, not a physical object, but it exists in an actual 3D space.
Yeah.
So it can be
Oh,
behind someone's head or, behind one part of their head, but not another, and I think well, one, it saves you on space, but then also it allows you to do things where it's like, oh, you might not be able to cut in close enough if you were sort of bound by more conventional lettering rules, if
yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, that's true. Yeah.
You know.
If
Oh,
if
the other
if
thing
for
is
example Jonathan Reason started like pulling on the word balloon, like I
Too
don't really
much. Too much.
like I'd be like, well, that's a little off, but I can buy it. But if like, May started pulling on the word balloon, I would be looking for Mr. Mixospitalik.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. It would have to have a lore reason as opposed to something in mind where you might accept a little bit of that fooling around as like, it's just a stylistic choice.
I
yeah.
feel like Gene's about to show us something.
I think so
Oh, no,
too.
it's just yeah, just our mutual friend Kevin Cannon, who is not actually blood related to Zander Cannon, but we used to share a studio, and
Yeah.
just yeah, he did wonderful things with word balloons like that.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I'm a good letterer. I don't even come close to Kevin Cannon. Like, there's no, he's the king of letters, and he's not even. I mean, he's not even a letterer by trade. Like he letters his own comics, and he does like, he's actually lettering the. I'm working on a book that we started years ago today, and he's lettering that. But yeah, like he only letters his own stuff, and yeah. I could train 1,000 years, I wouldn't get that good.
Yeah.
There are some people whose lettering just matches an artist perfectly. Like I do think like you guys or that particular Todd Klein, of course, with
Matches
anyone.
everybody.
But like for a long time, I thought John Workman was a pen name Walt Simonson was using.
Totally, totally, because he was the perfect guy for Thor.
Right.
I mean, or like Tom Warzakowski was the voice of Chris Claremont because every X book was lettered by him, and it was always great, and it always felt right because he had this ability to sort of like squeeze in all of this Claremontian dialogue that was,
Yeah.
I don't think Gene ever answered the question of what is his favorite part of making a comic.
Oh,
Rough layouts.
Oh,
interesting.
really?
Just yeah, when I get the rough layout really figured out, and my rough layouts include temp lettering, which I assume was going to be moved around more subtly later, but at least I've left room for it. But also, I figure out the emotional beats, the shading, and the lighting. So if I take photo reference later, I'll actually know where to put the lights, the poses, and all that. And everything just clicks, and it's like the story moves along, and everything works together to make this. You understand the plot and what the characters are going through. uh that's where the comics art for me all comes together, and then after that everything is illustration, which is a totally different art.
So I have a question. What'd you bring me on for? Like, if you like doing that so much, like that's the stuff that I did. I
Oh
mean,
no,
which
but
I loved, and I loved working with you, and I loved having, but I think it's so funny that you're like, oh yeah, that's my favorite part. He'll do it.
I love your storytelling, and you do it like literally 3 times faster than me or 4 times faster than me.
Okay,
So it's kind of like,
speed.
oh, this book will come out on schedule much better if I bring Xander on.
I get that, and I could imagine like if I was doing a comic on a really tight schedule, I could imagine somebody doing layouts, and I'd be very happy to do finishes over that. If I felt like they were a good, if they were good.
Yeah.
Gene had to draw like 50 characters and
Well,
backgrounds.
Yeah, right. No, and that for sure, especially on something like, oh yeah. Well, and I love that you do your layouts with a tone on there. I think that I learned that from you. I started doing layouts that have either a tone or like really sort of work in the darks and lights. That is a game changer for
yeah,
for storytelling layouts because
Oh,
all of a sudden
really?
you're like, oh, now I have sort of a sense of the sort of the depth and 3D aspect of it instead of just kind of going, yeah, there's a head here and yeah, there's people in the background, but a real sense of like, oh, this person in the foreground is sort of in shadow so that we can kind of look beyond them at the things that are in the light. That
yeah. I'm
I really got that from Gene. That's a hell of a like like a revelation, I think.
Yeah. Let me just take a kind of a random page here. Let's see. Oh no, that's not a good one. That one has okay. But a lot of storybook telling, a good storybook telling is drawing the eye to where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
So like in this first scene, you can see the kid. It's the emphasis is on the kid. Um, Over here, there's kind of like a subtle emotional beat where we want the photo on the bedside. It's actually really important to the story, and I
Yeah,
want to
but
draw
it's
the eye
but
there
your
while
eye
the
goes
head
right
later
to
action
it.
happens. Yeah, and just all these little subtle things. And if I when I do give adjustments or suggestions for changes to the colorist working on this, is to say, we need to draw the eye to this point, and you have the color is now making the eye go here. Like, oh God, once did a story for DC set in a shop. The first scene was set in a shopping mall food court, and I had all these signs for fake restaurants in the background, and the colorist did them in
Oh,
bright jelly bean candy colors. So like the eye was totally drawn to these signs. And it's like that's actually the least important thing in the scene. I know realistically, but I didn't have a
right.
chance to change it
Eh,
because that's
You
not how
didn't have a
DC
chance.
works.
And he was probably like, I spent a whole day doing those damn signs.
Yeah, but it was like,
What do you
oh
mean you want them
no,
all in shades of purple or whatever?
yeah, there are ways to do it, but it's not natural.
Yeah.
It's not something you'd naturally think of if you're
Yeah.
not thinking about this how the storytelling's working.
Well, it's so funny to look at old like comics from the 80s where they really had limitations on colors and being like, here's a whole crowd of people. They're yellow. Like just
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
start to finish. Not even like shades of yellow, there's all yellow and it had to work as a black and white drawing. And then you didn't even really notice like these sort of like stylistic or sort of like color cheats that they were doing.
Yeah. You legitimately could not color a person of color accurately before like a certain point in time.
oh
And
God, yeah.
like I feel bad when I look at them and it looks like
Oh yeah,
looks offensive, but it's like they really couldn't do it.
right. And it was like, yeah, like they were the same color as the Gray Hulk, which they couldn't
Yeah.
get right either. And it was like,
Yeah.
geez, that's a really a choice, you know?
Uh there are two questions in the chat that I think are connected. So one is from JV, who is asking, I'm sure you saw this coming. What was a collaboration like with Alan Moore on Top 10? And the other one is from Mike Edson, who says, I've heard from other artists that layouts are their favorites. Is it a deal breaker when a writer wants to do that part?
Hmm.
So I feel like those two questions are connected just because of Alan's writing style.
Yeah.
So
Well, I will say about Alan, the collaboration with Alan, it was pretty unidirectional. Like it wasn't sort of like, yeah, it wasn't like oh, he wrote a plot and then we fleshed it out and then he dialogued it and then we went back and forth. It was like it was completely done, basically like a concerto written out, and then you just kind of have to perform it in a way. And
That's
and I
totally
think
true.
and and at first Gene and I were sort of like going back and forth and sort of saying, "Oh, well, you draw this and I'll draw that." And but I think more and more we realized it makes a lot more sense if I just sort of like synthesize all that stuff onto something that is sort of like a visual representation of it, and I choose where the word balloons go, and I choose where where the storytelling goes and sort of how the composition works, and Gene can just illustrate, illustrate, illustrate. And I think that that's generally how it worked. And I thought that is a great collaboration. It isn't how all collaborations should work, and it isn't how I would always want to work. But I think it is a great way to work, and is a super great learning experience about script writing and about storytelling and about sort of like choices about things and how specific you have to be um, and where he was maybe more specific than he needed to be.
Yeah.
hmm.
I'll say that Xander felt more free to play with the layouts given inside the panel descriptions than I was. Like you would leave heads out or add heads in, put in a background or leave out a background, even if it said in the script to put it in at that point. But you kept in mind what the goal was of the scene. So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, we need an establishing shot. He has it here, but I can actually do it two panels before or one panel later,
Mhm.
and the storytelling will work fine. The emphasis is on this character who's speaking right now. The reactions of the other characters isn't important, so I can leave out their headshots and just have word balloons, going off panel. So Xander felt much more comfortable about that and made the storytelling work more smoothly because he understood the goal of the story better than I did and what was going in each scene because Xander had done every stage of comic book creation at that, like, writing, lettering, drawing, inking, everything. And I just been a penciler and inker.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I felt like I tried to make sure that on average, like if you averaged out every page, I put in everything, but I
Yeah.
didn't. But I feel like if you had a computer sort of like take his scripts and make them, the way that he writes them out, it gets a little stiff, like
Yeah.
I feel like every panel kind of becomes its own composition, its own, like a painting, and I feel like, well, you don't want to have all that detail in this one because you're saving it for the big reveal of the city or whatever. And I felt like that I it's not like it wasn't there, but I was trying to add a certain organicness to it that was that it could be a little bit, it could feel a little bit more like comics rather than a series of illustrations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. You gave it breathing space.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's like a typical Alan Moore panel. If four people are in a conversation together, Alan in every panel would describe what all four characters are doing. Every panel, which implied that he wanted all four characters in the panel in every scene on the page. And
But
Xander would be like, no.
well, and I think that's a nice way of covering your butt too, to sort of say like, well, character one is doing this, two's doing this, three's doing this, four's doing this. So whichever one you feel like you can put in there, he's got it covered. It's not like he's
Yeah.
like, oh, so and so is in the background doing this, but I don't. But if I choose a different composition, then I don't know what person, this other person that I chose to put in there is doing. So it's I think that the way that he does it is to over deliver so that we don't have to ask him any questions,
Yeah.
which I think is a great maneuver, like he's got, well, especially at the time he was writing Tom
The
Strong,
time.
Promethea, Top
Yeah.
10, and then however many Tomorrow Stories there were, three or four. It's like he can't be fielding questions all damn day about about like a slightly unspecific, panel direction. So
Well, there was that one time he just gave you that really big detailed splash page to draw because he was sick, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. This is going a little bit off the thing, but I was reading that Daredevil Born Again, the David Mazzucchelli sort of like artisan edition. And
Uh-huh.
there was a thing in there where he was saying like he was so far behind, he was so stressed, he was so sleep deprived that he was like, "Can you please write me a story that, or can you please write me a section that is like mostly things not to draw?" And so it's that the flashback in an early issue where it's just word balloons in the darkness because he's newly blind. And it's
Oh
like
yeah.
I never thought that that was like a time-saving maneuver. Of course it is in retrospect because you only had to draw him once on every page. And but I was like, "Oh man, I love it when you can successfully hide something that is just saving you time or saving somebody else effort or whatever."
It reminds me of, like in rock concerts when the guitarist all of a sudden has like his own solo. It's just because the vocalist can't sing anymore.
Right, I gotta drink some water. Yeah. Yeah. Just 30 minutes ought to be fine. Just go to it.
Um, so one of the things that I was looking at in sleep is so I mentioned your letters page, and I thought this was interesting because you point out that there are four reasons to be doing commercial art, and I would
Oh
like
yeah.
to hear your thoughts on this as well, Gene, because Xander really only named three.
Oh, did I?
Oh.
I must have not edited it very well.
Well, no, I think because you said the first one is do work that shows your skill,
Okay,
uh,
sure. Yeah.
which is basically, so this is your portfolio work, this is what you show.
Yeah.
Um, and then number two is do work that gets you name recognition,
Hmm.
so that number it powers number three, which is do work that shows your brand. So I feel like do work that gets you name recognition. That's the stuff that you do because that stuff is going to sell regardless, and it puts you on the map. And then do work that shows your brand. That's what sleep is. That's what May is.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean,
And I
certainly
think your number
top
four is
10
a
has been the
combination.
thing. I mean, top 10 has always been the thing that gets my emails answered, like,
Hmm.
"Oh yeah, Xander is like he exists in this like category of artists that worked on things that we all know." And I mean, even if it wasn't fun, even if it wasn't sort of artistically satisfying, it would still be super valuable. Whereas a creator-owned thing, if it's not fun or artistically value, or artistically interesting, it's like, well, then why did I even do it? Like,
Yeah.
so.
Well, what do you think, Gene? Is there another reason to add to
Oh,
here? I think your
well, he
fourth
just said the
reason,
last
Xander, is
reason.
a combination. Was that?
He just said the last reason, which is, I mean, and the last reason is because artistically, you just have to get that story and those ideas out there. It's just bursting out of your chest like that alien chest burster.
In a good way, though, hopefully.
Yeah.
Uh, so the thing that I thought was interesting when you point out do work that gets you name recognition is the sentence, when someone says they loved it, even if it was awful and you hated it, say thanks.
I
Do you
think,
have
well,
one of those, either of you?
I mean, I don't think we need to be putting people on blast out here, but I mean, I think we've all done stuff that we're like, yeah, it was fine. It was, I mean, I think like Howard Chaykin sort of famously like did a Star Wars comic, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's such an old curmudgeon that people are like, "Oh, I loved your Star Wars comic," and he's just like, blah, it sucked. It was just a job, and it's not fun, and blah blah, and it's like he's Howard Chaykin. That's part of his brand, but I also think like you can just say, "Oh, thanks, I'm glad you enjoyed it."
Yeah. I once saw an interview with Howard Chaykin on a PBS comics show. It was like a very short-lived regional comic show. And the guy who does it has this like intro that has superhero music and then these scenes from different comic books, and it's called like comic something. And in the background he did a Zoom interview with Howard Chaykin. So in the background, this interviewer who's a professor at this university has all this superhero comics memorabilia just lined up behind him as decorations. And Howard Chaykin spent the whole interview insulting superhero comics readers. And this guy's just sitting there like,
Yeah, why did I choose him again? Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I've done, I mean, I did a million layouts of comics that are kind of like, I don't know, like they're fine, but they're kind of forgettable, or like I forgot them because I only worked on them for like a week and a half, or like, or 3 weeks, something like that. Like I was just churned out a whole bunch of layouts. And so when people come and tell me like, oh my gosh, this meant so much, or oh, I really love this, it's like, first of all, I'm frantically trying to remember which one that was. But I also, and of course sometimes,
Yeah.
I do or I don't, but like it's like, why? I don't think that person is interested in being in like the ins and outs of being a professional, comic book artist who like kind of doesn't care about something that may have really meant a lot to them. They just want to be like, they want you to go like, oh yeah, that was really fun, or oh, here's an interesting story about this writer working with this writer. Oh, I had so much fun doing that. And I mean, why, I don't know, why sour it by saying like, the scripts were late, or this so
Yeah.
and so's a jerk or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, when you complain about a comic you did to a person who just told you that they love it, you're telling them, you don't understand comics, you have bad taste, and you're not very smart.
For sure. For sure. Especially when there's always going to be a good story about it,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that was fun, like, oh, the first time I got, and this is not a bad, but like the first time I got a Mark Waid script, oh my gosh, it was so exciting. I mean, I loved working with Mark Waid on that. That was great. So, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like, there's always something like, oh man, when I got to go to the DC offices after I did such and such. Oh, wasn't that a cool thing? It's like, yeah, that has nothing to do with it. But that's what people are interested in hearing about, is like a cool part of it, This is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like if you tell somebody that who loved your work, a certain piece of your work, that you actually don't like that work, you're also kind of sending out the message to the universe that's like, well, you shouldn't buy that thing I worked on,
yeah.
which would also suck for you.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Or you wouldn't like the stuff that I like of my own work. Like if someone's like, oh, I love top 10, and I'm like, top 10, blah, yuck, it sucked. Well, then why are they going to buy, you know, Kaiju Max, which I'm, shouting to the heavens or whatever, they're going to be like, well, it's not going to be like the thing I liked, so forget
Yeah.
it.
Well, I'll say another thing is also if you hire Zander Cannon to do layouts for stories, because the artist might
You're
be a
an
little
idiot
slow,
if you don't.
and you need at least as good of storytelling or better storytelling. And there are a lot of comic book artists out there most comic book artists out there have storytelling that's not quite up to the Zander Cannon level, and I'd include myself in that. I could not do the things Zander Cannon does in Sleep or inside of Kaiju Max. I mean, it's very, very good storytelling. And having Zander Cannon doing layouts for a book is making the book better. He may, Having Zander Cannon storytelling may not save the book from a bad script and bad art, but it will be a better book in the end if you put Zander Cannon in that process.
Thank, thank you, Gene. That touches my heart.
It,
Yeah.
it
And
raises
what am
the
I going to get the
floor.
15%?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I don't know. Back to the original question. I like the idea that you can, uh, the whole point that I wrote, that sort of like those things that you get out of a story, are out of a job, is just that like sometimes the things that you think that you get out of everything, like a sense of personal satisfaction, are only from a couple of them, and sometimes it's just like you just knock this thing out and work and move on to your next one. You're gonna do a ton of those. I really had a long time. It took me a long time to learn that, because I felt like, no, I gotta really, sort of method act my way through this process. And it's like, nah, you're just drawing Rick and Morty. You can just do it, like it's in your art style. You don't have to live and breathe Rick and Morty. You can just do it.
I do think that's interesting because you mentioned that the one direction of collaboration that you guys had with Alan was a fine way to collaborate, but that was 25 years ago.
Hmm.
Like, would you work that way now with anyone?
Well, not everybody is as hard to reach as Alan Moore is. You know, like I think even then it's like you could call or email a ton of people, whereas Alan Moore is just like, well, you could fax him, you could call him, and maybe you get him, but like
Yeah.
you're always kind of like, oh, I'm wasting his time. But like even then, you email people and you wouldn't. you just like maybe expect them to write back or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. If I were as in demand as him, I might put up some barriers as well.
Yeah. I'm going to say I've worked with a decent number of writers who also do side projects on things like Hollywood or whatever, right?
Mhm.
When I was working with Kelly Sue DeConnick, she was also writing the stage play book for one of those Cirque du Soleil drama type things in Hollywood, Las Vegas.
Oh,
So she was kind of hard to reach sometimes because she was juggling multiple things. And, that's kind of Alan Moore too, was he was working on the whole America's Best Comics line and doing um, various crazy wizard projects and stuff like that. Talking to
right,
his sock puppet,
right,
all the good
right,
things. So,
right. Turning lead to gold or whatever.
yeah.
Speaking unearthing,
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, yeah.
speaking of, there's a comment in the chat. Peter, because you mentioned Kelly Sue, Peter says he just wants to say to Gene, deep bow for Wonder Woman Historia.
Oh, thank you.
Uh, Gene, I think this is interesting because the way that you two think about story is so different. So I was mentioning to Xander earlier, right? Jonathan Reason in Sleep. It's a black and white comic. He's wearing red glasses. But if it weren't a black and white comic and he wears red glasses, I would be like, why the hell is he wearing red glasses? Because it's
Right.
black and white. I never
Is he
think about
Sally Jesse Raphael?
it.
Sorry. It's just got to give a shout out to my boy Michael Fitzgerald Troy. That's his obsession. Anyway, go ahead.
So, Gene, would that like what kind of mentality would you like when you see a bit of storytelling like that? What do you think?
Oh, like I mean, okay, so if I was doing a black and white comic and I was using red as the only accent color, like I tend to be a kind of literalist, and like like physical reality. So I'd be choosing objects that are red as things that are significant. I figure out ways to not include red in anything else in the story. And then one of the things that totally like flipped me on my head when I was reading Sleep and Xander explained to me is that red objects aren't necessarily red inside of Sleep, and the things that are marked as red objects aren't necessarily red. And it's a bit like you're reading a comic book and someone went through it and put an orange highlighter or a green highlighter on the
Mm.
important things.
Oh yeah.
Um, because like I think like in the eyeglass frame shop, like every frame is red, right? Or something like that. I'm trying to remember.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's not literally true. They're not if you could somehow step into that story world and look at those frames, they'd be all different colors of frames, mostly black and brown. Um, but no, it's like a color. You didn't describe it this way, but it's like a color highlighter of pay attention to these things.
Hmm.
Yeah, people are
Yeah.
definitely dying in Sleep, but I'm not sure I've seen red depict blood.
Yeah,
Now that you
no.
mention it.
No.
Oh
Yeah,
no, okay.
I mean, and I think you're right. You're right. Like it only works because the book does not use color as a literal thing. It's not meant to be, I mean, it's not metaphorical either. It's practical, but it is not, but it has a meaning rather than sort of like just a physical, like a aesthetic, sort of view of it. Like it's not red things aren't red. It's just important things are red. And so things that are important to this central lore
Yeah.
kernel. Um,
Once again, I will say to everybody watching that Xander publishes theories in his letters pages. So if you all read Sleep right now, you can all speculate on what the red means.
yeah, and I can call you a tinfoil hatter or whatever. Like I do like that I can sort of low key insult people by calling them weirdos and stuff on the conspiracy website or on the conspiracy letters page.
Xander, we have a question here, which is so are you writing the upcoming children's story that you mentioned? So let's talk about what you got going next.
It's a book called Vermin Quest. It's been announced. It's from Ad Astra Publishing Toon Books, um, and yeah, it's the editor. I knew the editor from other places, and so he was like, "Well, just give me what do you got? What are you doing?" And so I was like, "Well, all right." I was like borrower slash rescuer
Oh,
type stories where they kind of have to exist in a world that is. that is human sized, but then they kind of like repurpose, like thimbles of thread or things of spools of thread into tables and stuff like that. I always love that stuff. So so yeah, I have a story like that. It's not written. I mean, it is plotted out in my head, and it's plotted out in the proposal that I gave them, of course. But yeah, it's really one of those things where it's like I got to hit the ground running the second I'm done drawing all the intestines for this comic. Um,
Do you have to write the proposal while you were working on Sleep?
oh, sure, yeah, yeah. I mean, early on in Sleep, I had a little bit of time because I had done a couple issues. The image needs you to do a couple issues before you even solicit the first one. Um, and so I wasn't sort of like freaking out yet.
Okay.
And
So
I
is
think
that
I must have I might have done it before any of the stuff on Sleep had really started. Like I hadn't solicited anything yet. I just worked it in.
but that is part of being a freelancer, right? It's just like going looking for the next gig, even
Yeah.
while you're
Well, yeah, I got to ink 20 pages of another project with Kevin Cannon before I finish the last issue of Sleep. So I'm hustling. It's a hustle. The hustle is real, as they say.
Gene, what you got going next?
Oh, I am working way too slowly, but I'm not getting fired from First Ghost from Ghost Machine Comics. So when I talked
Okay.
about working with writers who are busy with side projects, I'm working with Brad Meltzer and Jeff Johns, who
Okay.
do a lot of TV movie type projects. So sometimes they're busy, but when they do get back, they're very engaged. But then they have to go away again, like a trucker dad or something. So,
Brad Meltzer, didn't you win an Eisner with him once?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And he had a very specific layouts for the story that I did with him, where I thought, I don't even know if that's going to work. And he's like, trust me, Gene, it's going to work. And it worked. So, yeah. And it won an
Well, that's
Eisner because the
nice.
storytelling worked so well.
Last hometown 9646, your friend, is asking, are you implying that Kevin Cannon is actually doing a new comic?
Oh well, this is a project called Understanding Rhetoric, which was it was a
Oh,
nonfiction sort of like it was a textbook from Bedford St. Martin's, the people who make textbooks. And so we did that in 2015. And so and it's kind of like an all-purpose composition sort of first year English um college English textbook that just talked about sort of like the fundamentals of rhetoric and Aristotle and all that sort of stuff. And so then they wanted to do a follow-up. They've done a couple follow-up things, but they wanted to do a follow-up thing on AI. And so where it's sort of the thing about like, what AI is and sort of like accumulating all of this sort of like current knowledge about it. And yeah, so and I was at first they were kind of like, yeah, we're going to show the pros and cons of AI. I'm like, I'm not there for the pros. Like, I'm not drawing something that's showing the pros of AI. And so I was a little worried. Then I read the script and it's like, oh no, like it's a very well thought out sort of like version of it. And then it talks about it, and it does talk about sort of like teachers and sort of like the reality of like people trying to use this stuff and having to sort of shut it down or convince them that like, hey, this is not really a proper synthesis of the information. This is a bunch of slop. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
anyway, yeah.
Gene, you
So
mentioned, yeah, go ahead,
oh,
Xander.
oh, I do wish that Kevin was working on a new sort of like piece of fiction, but unfortunately, I mean,
yeah.
it's a very enjoyable thing, but it is sort of nonfiction. Yeah, I wish he was doing Far Arden 3.
Gene, you mentioned Ghost Machine. That's been exciting. That
Yeah.
whole imprint has been exciting. What's the whole temperature of that organization like?
It's about making allowing creators to make great comics and trying to make profit off it. I haven't been able to. There's a system where like for the principles, the creative principles of it, which I kind of got an offer to join, but I wasn't able to join. Uh, it works off kind of like a different model instead of a page rate. It's like a salary model. But I
Hmm.
kind of want to do things that aren't Ghost Machine, so I can't really fully join yet. Like I want to do May Volume 3 someday, which would mean just like, oh, you want to pay me a salary, but also I'm going to work on something that's not your project for like a year or so. Um, but it's just this great creative team of people who are incredibly skilled at comics, incredibly brilliant at it, love it, love being kind of pulpy, while also being kind of thoughtful. I mean, it's just an amazing crew of people to work with. And you can tell it's also passion projects too, because like I said, like other people are doing multiple things, but like when Brad and Jeff Johns do engage, they are fully engaged, and you can tell like, oh God, this is the thing that's giving me energy and giving me spirit to keep on doing the creative work that's sucking my soul instead of giving me extra soul.
Yeah.
Gene, I would like to ask you because you and Xander seem to be friends.
Eh.
What can you say about the fact that Xander in the last, I don't know, 5 years alone has done a comic full of monsters in Kaiju Max, a horror comic called Sleep, and is about to do, did a bunch of Rick and Morty stuff, has worked with you on some Ahoy comic stuff, and is now about to do a young adult comic. Like, what can you say about that versatility?
What's the deal with this guy?
Huh? Like I mean like Xander was saying, like there's things Xander does. I mean, he'll always do it well, but there are things he does because it's to give him more possibilities to do things in the future and also to pay bills. Then there's the passion projects because um if you took the same high concept for one of Xander's projects and threw it at me, it would be a totally different story.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about Xander is that, like, I like playing with the mechanics of the universe and the plot, and then making things go chaotic. Like, essentially like I'm essentially like my brain's like a Coen Brothers movie as far as story goes. Of just like I like to have put the elements together and have them mess with each other and have chaos break out. And there may be a bigger theme to it all, but a lot of it is just like, oh, then I'm going to put some characters who don't like each other in a room together and see what happens. Well, Xander, he does do that, but also Xander tends to have a larger uh, point about the nature of life and the human spirit and emotional struggles that he's trying to get across. So if you got the high concept for, I gotta think this is kind of alphabetical back here, so I should have the canon stuff right next to the canon stuff. Yeah,
That makes sense.
so like if you take the high concept of heck, it sounds
I remember
like
Hick.
yeah, it's a guy who's kind of like found a pathway to the nine circles of hell.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then the adventures there. And it's like the immediate thing that went through my head was like when Xander described this to me, was like, oh, you could have so much fun kind of doing creative riffs on the Dante's Nine Circles of Hell and this and that. And for me, it sounded like, oh, this is like something where it's an action adventure satire.
Hmm.
And for Xander, it was like, no, I've got a bigger point about friendship and betrayal and trauma and things like that. And if I made it all about haha, laugh, laugh, you know, he wouldn't be able to get across the deep emotional points he did in Heck. And it's just like that Xander has something to say.
Well, you know what, Gene, that is what I was going to do. I was going to have it be like kind of heavy metal hell, and like, there was going to be, and I was actually going to include a lot of other hells, and it was going to be sort of like a lighthearted adventure. But then I was working on the method by which I was working on it was so sort of oppressively fast and oppressively sort of like minimal that made me strip out all of the fun stuff and
Huh.
left me with this thing that was sort of dour, and I mean, and I think an enjoyable book to read, but it also is sort of like grim and bleak, and that it was because of the way I was working on it. So I do think it's interesting because it's like, yeah, I agree.
You got
Like,
to strip out all the, this is a stripped down
yeah,
story.
this is the stripped down story. Well, I mean, if you the art is done at size, which is crazy. Like, and so anyway, but I do think it's interesting because it's like, yeah, if you had the same concept, you'd do it differently. If I did the same concept at a different time in my life or at a different speed, it would also be done very differently. You know, I think that yeah, like it's not just a person, it's also a method, and it's also sort of like a time, and like it's like, oh, is this a transition period? Oh, am I doing this for money? Have I already pitched it? Is it, you know, are other people working on it? Like there's a whole bunch of factors involved that I think is really interesting about every concept, you know, not just, you know.
Oh, okay, so I don't know if I've ever asked you. Have you ever read Ty Templeton Stig's Inferno?
Yeah.
Okay. See, like the obvious thing to me was like it was going to come out like Stig's Inferno, which is
Same.
very, very jokey
Yeah.
version of somebody going through Dante's Hell.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, it's like there's a book called Inferno by Larry Niven, that was, you know, where it's like this guy dies. I mean, he's like a science fiction writer. It's very much a self-insert who gets led through Dante's Inferno by Benito Mussolini of all people. And I remember, and it's like, but the funny thing was, it's like when I was doing it, when I had sort of decided, okay, I'm really just going to say it's just going to be Dante's Inferno, and I'm just gonna, and I gotta kind of skip over a lot of the stuff that's too deep of a cut. Then I was like, okay, I need to stop reading other Inferno stuff. I'm not even going to read the Inferno because I would just like looked at the Wikipedia page and I was like, oh, okay, here is he's going to go through the Wood of Suicide. Like it just sort of like got the map and got sort of like the general sort of like idea because I wanted to say like this is all stuff that is relating to just regular people. I unfortunately want to do like, oh, let's do some deep cuts. Oh, let's do some references. Oh, let's do some jokey stuff. And I was like, I don't want to do any of that stuff for this book. I just want it to be like he's in the, you know, he's in the ditch of like Simonists or whatever. And it's like, that's boring. We're gonna skip over that. Like, okay,
Okay,
this is
but
the thieves or this is the this.
see, but the thing is, for 98% of other comics creators who have worked in superhero books, the stuff they stripped out wouldn't have been the deep emotional thematic stuff. The stuff they would have kept the quick adventure jokes and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and then stripped out the emotional, deeper kind of emotional stuff that you kept in, like
Well,
and the
and
stuff
when
about trauma.
I feel like this is a book that I would might necessarily have done later in my career. I think other people would have done because because it doesn't have sort of any sort of like crowd pleasing stuff in it. You know what I mean? Like we were talking about, just the sort of the big set pieces and stuff. And the reason is
I
because
mean,
I was doing it and I didn't
he carries
think.
a shotgun, so yeah.
I mean, yeah, yeah, he's the guy from Doom, basically. But like it's only because I was doing it without a publisher in mind. I hadn't pitched it to anybody. It was basically something that was like becoming what it becoming what it was as I did it. I was making sort of fundamental decisions on every chapter about where it was going to go and like I didn't even really have it sort of locked in my head until I was maybe halfway done. Um, and
And
so
that's completely different from sleep, right?
Sleep was very worked out. I mean, I'm only adding things to sort of like the stuff that I've been adding to Sleep as I go is really just to sort of like facilitate the narrative and make sure that things are done in a certain order. But really, it's like that everything has been pretty well planned out for Sleep. But whereas Heck was kind of done on the fly up to about page 100. And then I started making plans for like, okay, I got to tie all this stuff up.
What is it safe to say that when making Sleep, you also stopped reading like transformation comics, like the Hulk?
Yeah.
On.
Yeah. I mean, by the time I was working on it, I'm like, I'm not reading anything because I'm frantic
Oh,
to be
okay.
working on that. I mean, but it wasn't the same decision, but yeah, probably. Like I wasn't trying to as opposed to Kaiju Max where I was like obsessively consuming all of kaiju media to sort of like steal their plot points as jokes and stuff. But this came from an emptier place where it was just like, oh, I'm really just concerning myself with the logistics of the story and tying it into the lore rather than trying to pull in a lot of like references to pop culture or references to other media, you know, with the possible exception of that Goya print.
Can I ask you guys a creative question? And there's no need to answer this if it requires too much thought, because this is based on something that Gene just said. Gene, if an editor were if a publisher were to give you the brief of Sleep without knowing what it's about. You know, it just gives you the idea of sleep. It's a Jekyll and Hyde story. It's black and white with red accents, and you only ever see the Jekyll part. What do you think you would have come up with?
Oh, see, I mean, like so much of sleep is, I mean, just the visual storytelling and kind of setting up mysteries that way, and like just like the black and white part, the red accents that aren't the red objects and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of my aesthetic tends to be, frankly, 90s indie movie.
Okay.
So it would have kind of come across as someone with a cheap 90s, film camera filming a movie
That'd
and
be
just
Like the
interesting.
Blair
literally
Witch
filming it
Project.
in real life.
Yeah, Blair Witch Project. That's
Like the
right.
Blair Witch Project. Xander, it's the same question, but like about May. Like, what would you have
Well,
done? What do you think
so
you would have done?
yeah, I mean, I think well, I like the idea that May is made special. That May, the character, is made special by her sort of like being being of two worlds. You know, that she's practical when she goes to like she's the sort of has a practical sort of like thought process that's like Earth when she goes to uh I don't know how to pronounce this world. I only know how to spell it. Simmerturn.
Yeah, there's a T at the
Simmerterran?
start of the S, so Cimeterran or
Sure,
something like
that
that.
one.
I probably didn't get it right either. Yeah.
But like I like the idea that she has special abilities because she's from Earth when she's there, but she also has special abilities coming back to Earth because she's spent all this time in this magical realm. And I really would like that sort of that duality. And I think that I would sort of make sure that okay, so she's got the abilities that she has in each place is different. You know what I mean? Like she has a
Yeah.
practicality in this fantasy world, and she has sort of like a fantastical abilities, or or even swordplay or whatever in the mundane world. I think that you know and that all I think it plays into it. I think you've already done that, but that would have been my focus is sort of like her sort of like straddling these two realms.
Can we just run down through the comments
Yes,
really quick?
please. Yeah, right.
Um,
Speed round. Yeah, lightning round.
uh, I had dreams of another double barrel. That's last hometown,
Oh,
99646.
I would love that. I would love that. I think that the only reason that we didn't do it is just there's it was tough to get the money together, and I think that I was also like had a dream to be like, yeah, it's gonna be $2. What am I thinking? Don't do that. Like that's crazy. There's comic books cap out at a place where $2 is per copy is not sustainable. Anyway, next question, please.
JV asks who contributed the most sight gags and Easter eggs on top 10. I believe we are
Oh,
last.
sorry. Oh gosh,
Yes.
sorry. Um, well, Alan, number one. I think that I put in, and I mean, I kind of like put in all the stuff that he was asking for, like like and fit them in. Um, but I mean, first place, Alan by far. Gene is a close second, and I'm a distant third. I
yeah.
don't think that I think that I would put in like a little gag, but I didn't have a good sense for the aesthetic at that time. I was kind of trying to put in just things I liked. And
Okay.
Gene was
Sure.
much more sort of like on task, and he was like, okay, yeah, like I'm gonna take what he did, which was, sort of like Silver Age superhero stuff, and I'm gonna add a science fiction aspect to it. And I'm like, I'm gonna add an anime thing, and it's like, no, 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 no. That's
It's like
done.
drawing the Powerpuff Girls, but they're real.
That was Gene for sure.
Yeah.
Like what like that was an ideal choice.
What
Um,
was it like?
oh, yeah, let me just throw this in. Answer the question too. I'm going to go quality over quantity. At the start of the script, almost all of the Easter eggs were in the script from Alan Moore, but within a few issues, it kind of dropped off, and you'd give a theme for the Easter eggs,
Mm-hmm.
or even wouldn't mention it. But obviously, there was space for Easter eggs because it was just a street scene. You have to throw something in there. Um, but almost all of the best ones were from Alan in the script. So if there's something that made you laugh out loud, I can almost guarantee you it was in the script from Alan. So like
Uh-huh.
the Beatles featuring like Beetle Bailey and Blue Beetle obviously was in the script because it's too good. Yeah.
And a yellow submarine beetle.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
in there too.
Yeah, I think yeah, and again, it's like if it was fundamental, like obviously if they spoke or anything, and it was really sort of like fundamental to the sort of Silver Age thing, that's Alan. If it's a sci-fi deep cut, or is a reference to Alan Moore, that's Gene. And then
Okay.
if it's an indie comics thingamajig, it's probably me. I probably put in I put in milk and cheese gags, or I put in like there was a character called Bolts Bailey. No, wait,
Yeah.
is that right? But I made him look like I designed him and he looked like uh oh, Bolts Bradley, and I designed him to look like Buddy Bradley from Hate. So like, you can tell where
Oh
where
yeah.
my aesthetic was at the time. Mr. Indie Comics at the time anyway.
Did you guys have a favorite Easter egg that you worked in there, or that you a favorite one to draw?
Uh I
Because
don't know
my
about one
favorite
to
one was when you guys put in the Hamburglar.
I
It's like,
think
what?
that sounds like a Gene reference. That sounds like one that Gene put in for sure. Uh I mean
Oh no, that
there
was in the script. That was in the script.
oh, was it really? Okay. I
Yeah,
mean
and
go
then
ahead.
they modified the art after we sent it in to give it crossbars on the striped prisoner uniform, so they wouldn't get sued by McDonald's.
Yeah, that was another thing. I mean, I feel like we were both so young that we were kind of like I didn't really realize what constraints there were about like, getting sued, like what fair use really sort of like encapsulated, especially for a huge corporation that didn't want to deal with even frivolous lawsuits, and so like I think we were just throwing stuff in and it's like that was maybe not the best idea.
Yeah. Oh, the other funny thing is because especially at the time, DC was broken into different I forgot it's like groups into different like DC Comics is broken into groups. So like there's a Superman group, a Batman group,
Oh
some
yeah.
other groups and stuff like that. If we threw in a reference to a DC comic, sometimes even though we owned DC owned the copyright to it, they'd still modify it so they wouldn't offend a different comics group. So like Batmite shows up and they take his ears off or something like that, so they wouldn't piss off the Batman
Oh,
guys.
Yeah. And I think that there was still sort of a pers or like even just a pose that like, oh, Wildstorm is slightly independent of DC, which is totally false. But like, I think that that was kind of the idea is that like, oh no, we're our own thing. We're not being controlled by the DC juggernaut. And it's like you were. It's well,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I, I feel it would have been wishful thinking to think that was true.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean that I think they made a bunch of empty promises to Alan Moore that he wouldn't be interfered with, and of course they instantly were,
Of
you know.
course.
And
No, yeah. Scott
and it's
Duber
like
and Jim Lee, I
he should
believe,
have at
actually. Yeah.
least said, well, if you're gonna redraw it, we get everybody who worked on it gets $1,000 bonus. That would have actually really helped.
Yeah.
But that
I
that
believe physically, like Jim Lee and Scott Duber flew out to England at the start of the book after DC acquired Wildstorm to
Yeah,
reassure Alan Moore in person, we're independent and we're not going to mess with your book. They're not going to mess with your book.
yeah, yeah.
And it
And
was
I
not a
feel
promise
bad
they could
for
keep.
I mean, I feel bad for both of those guys because they had to have an inkling at the time that that was a promise they could not possibly keep. Like there was no mechanism in place other than somebody's word. And I think that a lot of the stuff that was taken out was kind of like um uh, Paul
Paul Levitz.
Paul Levitt's kind of having this sense of honor about like, I mean, the whole big thing about the Marvel brand douche, like the ad, it was a real Victorian ad that they put in the back of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and it was just they put it in there, and obviously it's a funny joke, but he was just sort of like, no, 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 this isn't fair play to our competition. And it's like that's a nice thought, but it's also like, well, you have to balance it out between like, do you want to like piss off Marvel, which it wouldn't because it's just, it's kind of
Marvel would not care.
it's just a trashy joke. Who
Well,
cares?
yeah. And
And pissing
they
off,
worship, yeah, they
Alan
love
Moore,
Alan Moore too. So yeah.
who is making your best comics at the time.
Yeah. I
But
mean, the guys who ran DC, Marvel Comics at the time were as big of Alan Moore fans as me and Xander are.
Hmm.
So like I mean like they're the guys who like spent a decade getting the rights to print Miracle Man
that's
because
true.
it's like yeah, so they would not have been offended by it, but yeah, it was just Paul being a little bit overly cautious. being way overly cautious.
Yeah.
But the
You
thing
know,
about yeah, go ahead, Jenner.
oh, no, just I've got nothing bad to say about Paul Levitz, unlike Alan Moore. But like, I mean, unlike Alan Moore does, he doesn't. I think he does not like him. But I think that again, it's like he was just trying to be. He was trying. I think that what most of the things that he has done has shown that he is a very ethical person and is just trying to
Mhm.
do right by everybody, which of course always leaves somebody out in the cold.
Yeah, I had Paul on
I'll
the
never forgive him. I'll never forgive him.
Right, that's right.
I had Paul on the show a couple months ago, and like we also talked about a bunch of these, and I do think that when he said one of the things he said that stuck with me was, "Well, Alan's unhappy. He has every right to be,"
Hmm.
and I thought that was pretty big of him. I
Sure.
do find it interesting, Gene, that you said that you had to change characters that DC owned, even though DC had the copyright, because DC also owns Marvin the Martian, and you clearly drew Marvin the Martian.
Yeah.
So why are the Warner Brothers stuff like not affected, but the DC stuff is?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I guess because they were sharing offices or something like that, or I don't know. But
I really do think it was because it was kind of an attempt to sort of say that Wildstorm stuff was sort of like creatively independent,
yeah.
you know, and that they were kind of being it was sort of an even-handed approach across all things. That everything was meant to be sort of like uh with the serial numbers filed off. And I think that we probably could have been more careful, Gene, you and I.
It's interesting that we got a lot of information there from the very simple question of who had the most side gaps.
Right.
Um,
Wait, can I just
Gene,
throw in? I just want to
yeah,
throw in something.
This lightning round is taking forever.
Yeah, my favorite thing I actually did throw in because you asked that too, is also because it is the Alan Moore stuff where I got to tweak Alan Moore by throwing in his stuff in a slightly jokey way. So like I did two different versions of characters he called Cobweb showing up in the same scene.
Oh.
that's right. Also, an America's Best Comic character. Gene, Mike is asking, is your Ghost Machine book interconnected to the other Ghost Machine books?
Yes.
Okay.
Bam. Lightning round.
What is your favorite drawing you have done for a kid at a con lately?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Gene, you're the one who does drawings for kids. I don't.
Oh man. I mean, like the one that's sticking in my mind right now is this isn't really recent, but like 2 years ago, I was doing free drawings for kids at a public library in the Chicago area, and this little lady came by with gray hair, and she was probably like about 75 years old, and I just offered to give her a free drawing, and just drawing someone because I thought she was really pretty. But she also was very clearly 80 years old or 70. She's probably be so angry if she's listening to this right now. Probably
So
not.
pissed.
But but she was clearly older. But also, I thought she was pretty, and then drawing her as very pretty, but also clearly older, and just doing draw. I like drawing faces. That's my favorite thing in the world, just drawing faces.
Mm.
Okay.
You flirt. I mean, I just drew a Job of the Hut.
I was so angry.
Yeah, I just drew a Job of the Hut for somebody who is a kid in the sense that they're like in their 30s.
Xander, JV says your art on Smacks was deceptively friendly despite the heavy themes involved. That's why it works, especially in the fantasy setting of the story. How different was it working on those top 10 spin-offs without each other? Of Smacks and the 49ers.
I realized one, how fast Gene works because I was having to obviously do all the stuff that Gene was normally doing, and I was like, geez, I'm slow. I was very slow. I wasn't as professional and sort of like I couldn't move it along at a professional clip the way that Gene could. I also realized I had a lot to be I left a lot to be desired as sort of like an illustrator. Especially with that volume of work. I felt like I wasn't as up to the task as I had hoped I was.
It's unfair because you don't draw the same way at all.
No.
But I think that's what people were expecting.
Oh, well, for sure. I mean, yeah, of course people hated it, like there are all sorts of people. I hear now people liked it, but back then, boy, I did not. I heard people like hated it, and I'm like, well, That's how it is. I can only draw one way.
I kind of describe, I mean, I still describe it as the pure uncut storytelling from Top 10. Like it's just
Sure.
it's all there except for the obsessive Easter eggy stuff that I would put in
Right. Right.
and realistic, anatomy perspective, all that. But I mean,
Yeah, that was
but
definitely
as
not
far as the
there.
storytelling, yeah, it's the pure uncut heroine of Zander Cannon storytelling. But also let me just on that subject, the Kaiju Max, there's a copy behind. I was going to pick up a copy, but there's one behind Xander on the wall. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
there's two on the wall behind him. Yeah, that is such perfect top 10 storytelling
Hmm.
of just like
Mhm.
including all of the Easter eggs, fine details, jokes in the background, and stuff like that. Like I could, at my best and youngest, I could not top what Xander is doing in Kaiju Max as far as that kind of top 10 storytelling. So I feel
Oh,
like you've
Gene, you flirt.
it is. It's true. I mean, I asked, I asked Alan Moore for a blurb for May, and he was like, "Go to hell," in
Oh,
slightly
I
more
bet he
fun
did.
words.
I bet he said to go to hell.
It, I don't do that sort of thing. And then a few years later, he did it for Kaiju Max, and it's kind of like, okay, fair
Burn.
play. Yeah.
Well, what's funny is that I mean, not all layouts I think are this way, but I was definitely one of the things that when people ask me what I did on top 10, because it's like the reasons that they like it were always Alan Moore and Gene Ha. And I was just sort of like, I'm the glue that holds it together, and that's fine. And I was helping it come out on time and all that. But I also think that one thing that I really did add aesthetically to top 10 was this style of storytelling, which was meant to be very sort of like matter of fact, sort of documentarian, like it's just somebody with a camera just kind of, capturing these moments. They're not meant to be staged. They're not meant to be sort of like dynamically sort of like composed. They're just sort of, and that was what I did in Kaiju Max, which I don't do for everything, but I did it for Kaiju Max because it's like everything's so kooky that you have to kind of say, yeah, this is literally what's happening. This is the boat on top of a house where you're like, I'm framing it in a way that you cannot avoid the idea that this is what's literally happening in this picture. This monster is eating another monster or whatever it was. Um, but yeah, so like you just said, I just said in more words, it's the pure uncut heroine of the top 10 layouts.
Kaiju Max does make me wish that I was more into kaiju because whenever I did get a reference, I would be like, "Hey, I know that
Hey,
reference,"
hey,
and I wish
Captain
I got
America, I
more of
did
those
get that
references.
reference.
That is Hamilton.
Right, yeah, I got it. I got it. Hamilton. Yeah.
Yeah. So, any closing words about what you guys have coming up, or just about each other
Oh,
as we
well,
wrap up?
Gene is a delight. I'll say that, and I'm so glad that he joined us for this. This is so great
Yeah.
that
Xander
he
and
got
I
up
are,
early and
yeah.
everything.
Oh yeah. Xander and I are two big comic geeks, which is why every time we show up at the same convention, even though it always breaks into a fist fight, we're completely unable to hurt each other because it's kind of like
Right, right.
so that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
that's.
that's
I mean, the fist fights that I have with Gene at comic conventions are really the highlight. They're so
yeah.
fun.
Xander, you have two more issues of Sleep coming out. One, I believe, is coming out later this month.
Uh, yeah, it should be. No, it's. I think it's actually December.
Okay,
Uh,
December,
y-
and then January.
and then January or early February.
Okay,
Had to take a little bit of time to make sure that stuck the landing.
and that's the one where the two of you have matching covers.
Yes, is number 8. That'll be the one out in early February.
And the trade would be out in
Well, there's going to be a hardcover first, and that should be out in before the summer. Hopefully, we're
okay.
working on it. So it's like and it's just me kind of having to sort of put all that stuff together while I'm working on other stuff. So it's just, I mean, that's the plan. But yeah,
Gene, when can we expect the release of what you got coming up for Ghost Machine?
Yeah, first Ghost. I am so insanely slow. It's been taking months to get the first issue done, and also I just got some extra script for the first issue, so it'll be a while. I don't know when. I'm just gonna mention also when I did the cover for Sleep. for all the guts lying around that appear on the cover, I picked specific organs. And I don't
Okay.
know if anyone will ever care, but for me, it was kind of like, no, it's got to be real specific organs and stuff like that. And I need to figure,
I
yeah,
feel that. Sometimes
I
you're like,
brainstorm.
I can't just draw general guts. I gotta like show me what a kidney looks like. I'm putting it in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I went through different organs and dissections for humans and animals. Like, oh, that one's good. I'm going to throw that one in.
That's
You
that's
know,
nice that you're traumatizing yourself for the sake of this e-cover.
if anyone ever sees your search history,
Oh yeah. Well, a
people will
serial
be
killer
like,
would know
"What?"
what guts looks like. They don't have to look it up on the interwebs.
Uh, okay. Peter says he will buy that sleep trade based on this interview. Sold.
Yeah.
Excellent. We did it. We get it. We got that one sale. That's all I needed. It's over
Thank
the
you so
top.
much, both of you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dwee. That's really great to
See you
see.
next year.
Absolutely.
Yep.
See you guys. Let me end the stream right now. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you guys next year.
Totally.
And
2026.
Oh.